Hello friends, welcome back. And today we are here with a new video. It's about in this video we're going to talk about state and its origin, its developments and elements of state. So without wasting any time, let's start. So the first thing is we need to know about the difference between state, country, nation, and nation state. These are all different concepts, and they are sometimes used interchangeably. But there are definitely some slight differences between all these concepts. So let's see. A state is a territory with its own institutions and populations. A sovereign state is a state with its own institutions and populations, but institution or that population needs that institution needs to have a permanent population, and it needs to have a specified territory, and there needs to be a government. It can be any sort of government, it can be a parliamentary form of government or presidential form of government, and it must also have the right and capacity to make treaties with and arrangements with other states. So we can say that a sovereign state in is actually the modern state or modern nation state. We see, for example, India or Pakistan or America or Germany. These are all sovereign states. On the other hand, a nation is a large group of people who inhabit a specific territory and are connected by some sort of culture, some sort of history, or there can be any other common things between these groups of people. So, nation is actually something which also has a specific territory, and it also has a specific or a permanent population, but this population or this territory is connected by some sort of culture and by some sort of history, and there can be some other common things as well in a nation. For example, that group might speak the same language, they might their dress code might be the same, they might have the same history, and blah blah blah. So this is the difference between a state and a nation. And when we talk about a nation state, we say that a nation state is a cultural group, or in other words, we can say it's actually a nation. I mean, it's a nation, but it's also a state. I mean, a nation state is actually both. It's a nation as well as a state, and it can also be a sovereign state. So in the contemporary world, we can say that today's states can be considered as nation states. Now, coming to another concept which is very much used in no common language, a country. The word country. The word country can be used to mean the same things as state, sovereign state, or nation state. It can, however, be also used in less political manner to refer to any regional or cultural area that has no governmental status. So we can say that for a layman, he can use the word country if he wants to talk about Germany or America or India or some any other country. But for a student of political science or international relations, he or she has to use the word state rather than country. So this was about the difference between or differences rather between state, country, nation, and nation states. Now let's move to another slide. Now we will look at the origin and development of state, how the state came into existence, how the state came into being, and how it developed over the course of time. The word state, actually Greeks use the terms for state. Greeks use their Greek term polis, and then so for the first time the concept of state was actually developed by the Greeks, and they used the term polis to consider state, rather to use it as a state. Then the Romans used the concept or used the term civitas or republica, which in English means state. So Greeks were the first to use the word polis, which means state, and then Romans were the second who used the word civitas, or I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, and republica, which meant state. And then in the medieval period, if you look at the medieval history, the Christian Commonwealth also used the word state, but it was mostly a state which was not completely liberal, we can say, or we can say there were some sorts of restraints. I mean, the church had some sort of control over the over different organs of the state. So it was the in medieval period, it was the Christian Commonwealth which used the word or which used the term state for the first time. Then in the 16th century, Niccolo Machiavelli, Italian political philosopher, he used the word stato in his book, and it was he who actually used the term state in the modern or contemporary political science, we say. So as a community of person permanently occupying a definite territory. I mean, it's actually the definition of political state. It's actually the definition of state. So when we talk about state, we say that as a community of persons who are permanently occupying a definite territory, and they are legally independent of some sort of external control, and they possess an organized government which actually creates and administers laws over all persons and all groups within its jurisdiction. When we say that all these things are happening, we say that it is called a state. So in a state, we can say state is a group of or a community of people where there is a who are actually permanently occupying a definite territory, and they are legally independent of any sort of external control. They also have or they also can make a government or form a government, and that government will make laws for the welfare of all people, and all these groups and all these people will be within the jurisdiction of it, and all these things can compromise a state. So this was about the origin and development of state. Then there are some other points which we need to know about the origin and development of state. We say there are the theories of on the origin of state, which have been formed and developed as a result of political thought and philosophy in ancient times until the Enlightenment period in Europe. A state is an organized community living under a unified political system known as the government. So there are some theories which we need to know about the origin of the state. I mean, some theories related to the origin of the state. We need to know about them. The first one is the natural theory. So what is actually natural theory? The social urge of human beings to be within a group of people in the community, as in sociology, describes that man is a social being. So in sociology also we say that man is a social being. So the social groups actually provide the political development to stay and to work together with common standard law in the community, later on transforms it to a state. So we can say that natural theory is actually that a human being or human beings actually want to live or have the capability to work within a group, to live within a group, which ultimately transforms this community or these groups into a state. Then there is another theory which is called a patriarchal society, or patriarchal theory rather, I'm sorry. This theory actually this theory believes that the origin of the state actually evolves from the enlargement of family. So this theory actually believes that the origin of the state evolves from the enlargement of the family under the authority of parents or elders. I mean, later on it will develop into a tribe, then it will develop into a kingdom, and then finally into a state. So patriarchal theory of state is actually about the origin of state, which evolves from the enlargement of a family. So patriarchal theory believes that state evolved from the families. State has evolved from the family. State began with the family. State began with the family, then it changed into a community, then it changed into a tribe. Tribe changed into a kingdom, which ultimately led to the formation of a state. So this is the patriarchal theory of state. Then there is the force theory. And force theory believes that the creation of state through the constant war and invasion of great warriors in ancient times dominated the weak, that later on formed the state. So force theory is actually, we can say that in earlier times there used to be wars and wars between the empires, and if one empire used to beat another kingdom, then they would grab their land and they will possess that whatever whatever the previous empire had. So which will this will ultimately lead to a new formation of a state. So force theory is actually that it's actually a theory which believes that the origin of the state came by or happened because of the use of force by previous or earlier kingdoms or rulers. Then there is another theory of state. It's known as divine theory of state. Uh, in this theory, the rulers of the past advocated the political dominance of authority and power through their own ordinate mandate, that they represented the state as on the basis of divine rights, as God created the state. So actually divine theory, in if you need to make it into simple words, we can say that divine theory actually believes that uh, the state was created by God, and the representatives of the state, like the king, the monarchs, they were also chosen by the God. So it was in this nature that the divine rights of the king had the absolute power and influence over the subjects. So as I said that according to divine theory, state was created by the God and the representatives of the state were also chosen by the God. So these representatives or these kings, they had absolute power and influence over the subjects. So this was the divine theory of divine right theory about the origin of the state. Then the last theory of about the origin of the state is social contract theory. This is the right of the people to have the deliberate and voluntarily contract on the right to overthrow the kings and rulers against corrupt governance, to organize a new government within common interests for all the people, or all the persons. So, social contract theory actually says that there needs to be a contract between the king and the people, and the subjects, and those people who are being governed. So, this contract will help both the people and the ruler uh, to administer the things in a very good way, or to make policies for the welfare of the subjects and for the welfare of the state as well. And if there is any sort of corruption that is being done by the government, or that's being done by the king, then the people or the subjects of that place or that state will have a right to overthrow that government and make a new government. So social contract theory is about actually a contract between people who are being ruled and the ruler who is ruling those people. So this was about the origin of state and different theories related to it. Actually, the modern term state is derived from the word status. It was Niccolo Machiavelli who first used the term state in his writings. His important work is titled as The Prince. The state is the most universal and most powerful of all social institutions. You should keep this thing in mind, that state is the most universal and most powerful of all social institutions. The state also is the highest form of human association. It is necessary because it comes into existence out of the basic needs of life. It continues to remain for the sake of good life. According to Dr. Garner, state is a community of people where people live in a definite form of territory, free from any external control, and possess an organized government. According to Professor Lusky, he defines that state as a territorial society divided into government and subjects, whose relationships are determined by the exercise of supreme power. So these were the two definitions given by Dr. Garner and Professor Lusky about the state. Then we come to the elements of the state. What are the elements of the state? From the definitions, it's clear that there are some following definitions, or there are some following elements. There are some elements for the state. The first type is physical base of the state. There has to be some sort of physical base in order to make a state. So the first physical base of state is, or first element of state is population. As I said, in order to call a place a state or a thing a state, we need to have we need to have a permanent population. Then the second physical base of a state is territory. There needs to be a specific territory, a specific geography. Then the political basis of state are government and sovereignty. Government and sovereignty has to be there in order to call something or some place as a state. So the four main elements of state are population, territory, government and sovereignty. If a place has these four elements, then we can say that it's a state. If a place lacks one of these four elements, then we can't say that this place or this territory is a state. So these were the elements of state. Now we will explain one by one what's population and what's territory. When we talk about population, it's the people who make the state. So population is essential actually for the state. Greek thinkers who were of the view that population should neither be too big nor too small. Actually, according to Plato, the ideal number would be 5040 persons. According to Aristotle, the number should be neither too large nor too small. I mean, it should be large enough to be self-sufficient and small enough to be well governed. So according to the ancient Greeks, the population of the city-states shouldn't be more than 5,000. But if we look at contemporary or modern states today, it's very difficult to see a state with 5,000 with the population of 5,000 people. But in ancient Greek or ancient Greece rather, it was possible. So population is the first element of the state. The second element of the state is territory. I mean, we say that there can be no state without a fixed territory. In order to call something a state, we need to have a fixed territory. People need territory to live and organize themselves socially and politically. I mean, it should be remembered that the territory of the state includes land, water, and airspace. So in territory, both or all of them has to be considered, not just land. You have to consider land, water and airspace. All the three components has to be considered in territory if we are about to say that this place is a state. So the modern states differ in their size. As we said it, I said it earlier as well. Even in population, modern states differ from each other. And when we talk about territory also, modern states actually differ in their size. Territory is necessary for citizenship. There are nowadays small and big states in modern era. For example, we can see some states are very small in geography or according to geography or geographically we say. Some states are very big geographically. Some states are very small when we talk in terms of population. Some states are very big states when we talk in terms of population. The other two elements of state are government. We say that government is the third element of the state. There can be no state without government. That means that if there is no government, there can be no state. Government is actually the working agency of the state. It's the political organization of the state. And according to C.F. Strong, in order to make and enforce laws, the state must have the highest authority, which is called the government. So if there is no government, there can't be any state. Government has to be there in order to call something a state. Then the last element of the state is sovereignty. The word sovereignty means supreme and final legal authority above and beyond which no legal power exists. Actually, sovereignty has two aspects. Number one is internal sovereignty. Number two is external sovereignty. Internal sovereignty means that the state is supreme over all its citizens and associations or political associations. And external society means that the state is independent and free from foreign or external control. So these are the main elements or the elements of the state. We talked about population, we talked about territory, we talked about government, and we talked about sovereignty. So this was all about state, its origin, its development, and its elements. I hope to see you in another video. Take care. Enjoy your day.